guys, it's Ellie again this week. Hope you guys are doing well. For this week, we're going to start with a basic cut and a basic bruise for some special effects. So you'll want that bruise wheel that I told you to get and your quad from your kit. And a couple of brushes if you have them, sponges, and a wipe. Okay, so to begin, I'll be using this bruise wheel. And I'm going to take a little bit of this red color on an angled brush, just a little bit so that I can outline my line. And I will just put a very small amount. This is going to be a pretty small cut. And try to keep the edges pretty sharp. So there, I've got that. And then I'll go in with more of that same red to darken it up a little bit. Again, try to keep the edges pointed if you can. And you can decide where you want the thickest part of this cut to be, which would, let's say this is like a scratch from an animal maybe. The thickest part is going to be wherever it goes in deepest. So mine's already kind of thick right here. And then I'll take a little bit of a darker shade. On this one, I'll be using this. And then I'll put that there. What you can do if your angled brush is getting a little bit frayed, I just wipe it on the back and that kind of tightens it up. Then you can go like that, blend it in a little bit more. Okay, so once you've put your dark spots in the deepest points of the cut, I'll even use the edge of the angled brush to really get in there precisely. Basically, you want to start with the lighter red so that you've got sort of an outer ring of lighter red. Let me see if you can see it on here. There we go. And then the darker spot you can see. I'm going to leave mine like this for now, then we will go in with highlight to really let it pop. Okay, with a new brush, if you've got it, or if not, just clean your other one off well. You can just use the one from your quad. Mine's a little bit dirty, as you can see. Get some highlight on the brush like this. Then we are just going to go around the edges of the cut. I like to leave a little bit of space. See how you can see some space before? Let me see if I can get in closer. There we go. I'm using a really bad tripod, so sorry about the quality of this video. Leave some space, highlight around, and so again, I'm kind of envisioning this as like an animal scratch. If you've got pets, especially cats, you will know that when they scratch you, you know how it sort of raises up a little bit. So that's what this is going to do. Alright, once you've placed the highlight all around, I'm going to clean off the brush on my hand just to get off the excess. Come back out again if I can. And then just use the mostly clean brush to fan this out because you don't want it to look like it's highlighted. You want this to blend into your skin, but this will help it kind of look puffed up a little bit. And also just contrast from the reds of the cut a little bit more. Alright, I'll come back when I finish that. Alright, so as you can see, the inside of my arm is quite pale. So my highlight is actually a little bit darker and just more pink than a normal shade you'd want. So mine doesn't do a whole lot of justice. But you can see it did help to make it pop a little bit more. My highlight is also kind of dried out. This is a really old kit, so it's not blending as well as I would like it to. But once you do this, then you can go back in and add more details with your reds. So we've got our highlight. I'm going to do just a tiny bit more. And this time I'm going to actually leave not a line, but just have it a little bit less blended. Up there needs a little bit more. Okay, and then with the same highlight brush, clean it off. I'm using the blush shade in my quad, but you can also use a light red, tap it off. Then we're gonna go again around the sides. This one is actually going to get blended quite a bit, and this will again help to give that raised effect. I sort of just dab it, and then with the brush we'll blend a little bit. Honestly, I like to use my fingers or a sponge. Don't have a sponge right now, but so I'll do this and then I'm gonna go away and blend it with my finger. Alrighty, so this is gonna be the finished product for me. As you can see, some of the stuff isn't super blended, but this would work for sort of like a small cut on the face from stage. If you were doing this for film or something more up close, you might want to be a bit more precise, a little bit smaller, because obviously this is pretty big for just a scratch, but if you're going from stage, then you won't be able to see it as much. So basically, to recap, we want to do the red, darker red, highlight around, then pink around, and that will give it the illusion of sort of popping. If you can see, well, this is a little bit out of focus, but it actually sort of works. If you're from the stage and it's farther away, you can't focus as much. You can see it looks like it's sort of sticking up from the skin. So that's what we've got for a basic cut. If you have some blood that you want to add, you totally can. If not, this could be something that's sort of scabbed over. Okay, so now for bruises. What I like to keep around are a couple of brushes. I use these. It's not too important what you use. A few sponges, and I have two bruise wheels, so I'll be using them both, but you don't need to. Either one would work. I prefer this one because it has more colors, but this one is also doable. And then I like to keep a wipe around for any mess ups. First, you're going to need to find a location. I'm going to use the inside of my arm again just because it's accessible. And full disclosure, bruises are definitely not my strong suit. If you have a reference photo that you can use, please use that. I don't, so we're just going to be winging it today. I'm going to do mine kind of around here, and I'll start with yellow on a sponge. This is really just to kind of place down some color so you know where you're working. It's not super important where you do. Oops, sorry, bumped the camera. I'm going to use a mix of both yellows, but I like the more mustardy one a little better. Okay, so now I've got a little bit there, you can see. Then I do red. I'll be using this one. Wow, it doesn't want to come on the sponge. There's a little bit there. Again, this one can be not super precise, and you know, you make up the story for what your bruise is. So if this is something more fresh or more old, bigger, smaller, you know, you can really work with it and make it what you want. Okay, then we've got a little red place. Now I'm going to go for a brush. This is a bit of a looser brush, so it's not quite precise, and I'm going to do purple. I've got a few different purples here. Honestly, I'll tap a little bit of all of them, and then I got it on the brush there. So let's say for my bruise, the bulk of the hit for me will be right there. It's good to pick kind of a point of, I don't want to say point of attack, but you know, wherever you got hit the hardest, because that will be darker than any other place. And then blend it out with a sponge a little bit. Okay, so as I always say, if we're picturing that this is something for stage, especially if it's in the middle of a show, it's probably where the character got injured and has to quickly run backstage and slap on a bruise. So it doesn't have to be super precise. In a lot of shows, they'll just throw on some purple and a little bit of yellow and be done. So, oh my gosh, I keep bumping my camera. Okay, I'll do a little bit more purple in here. And maybe some of the darker purple. And you can do it in a couple of different spots if you like. That's good enough for me. Blend a little bit more. Okay, now I'm gonna go for blue. Again, that'll go in the deeper spots. This bruise, we're doing sort of not complex, but I'll show you guys how to do it with all the colors. But like, for example, I have a bruise on my arm right now that I got that wasn't something super bad, and it just is sort of a brownish shade, sort of a green, yellow, blue mixed together, but very light. Like, sometimes the bruises are not very bad. Okay, and I am definitely an offender for over blending my bruises. So I know there's some of you guys out there that are definitely going to be better than me, which is great. That means we're teaching you well. Okay, and finally you can take some green. I like to sort of pat this around the edges. They go more green as they heal. This one does have quite a lot of reds and purples, so it probably wouldn't have too much green, but we'll just show you just to be safe. I use this on a brush. The green in these palettes is very bright, so tap some off on your hand if you want. I did that already before I started filming. And then blend it a little bit. Alright, that's what I'm working with for now. I think I'm going to do a little bit more red, just what's left on the sponge in the middle, because I feel like it doesn't have too much red. Okay, and finally you can take some blue. I like to sort of pat this around the edges. They go more green as they heal. This one does have quite a lot of reds and purples, so it probably wouldn't have too much green, but we'll just show you just to be safe. I use this on a brush. The green in these palettes is very bright, so tap some off on your hand if you want. I did that already before I started filming. And then blend it a little bit. Alright, that's what I'm working with for now. I think I'm going to do a little bit more red, just what's left on the sponge in the middle, because I feel like it doesn't have too much red. Okay, again, like I said, it's not the best, but that would totally work, especially if you were doing this in the middle of a show. You really would just grab a sponge and slap some color on super quick. But that sort of gives you an idea, that gives you the orders of the colors, but you don't have to follow that super strictly if you don't want to. And also, this is sort of a strange place to get a bruise. I would suggest picking somewhere that makes more sense, like something that you would often hit. Okay, hopefully that helped you guys. Sorry about the not super great angles. It's really hard to film on your own inner arm with just a phone and a not so great tripod. Hope you guys learned a lot. Next week we'll be doing a design so you can get thinking about what character you'd like to do, or an animal, or really whatever you like. If you have faceplates or find them on the internet, feel free to start designing with some colored pencils. If you have crayons, that does work too, but I would suggest colored pencils. And we'll do a little intro of the design next week and then work on applying it on the face. Bye guys!